be a little bit off. So today we're actually trimming hooves of some of the goats that have not gotten their hooves trimmed, but because I didn't milk this morning, I didn't get to do a milking stanchion chat, so I figured we would do a goat maintenance stanchion chat. Now, a couple of these have not had their feet trimmed before, so it may be a little bit crazy. We'll just go into voiceover mode and let you guys watch them get their feet trimmed. So Kira and I have kind of been chatting about what in the heck should we do the stanchion chat about today, and something that's kind of come up on my Facebook groups, my homesteading groups that I belong to, is how do I get my spouse or husband to want to homestead with me? And basically that one. The other one was, how can I convince my husband that this is worth it? That's another one that we get. Now you guys may be like, well, you don't have a husband, how can you chat about this? Well, I have had a husband, and I have had relationships that have had to work around my wanting to homestead, because that's what I want to do. And a lot of people say they want to homestead and they get in it and it's just too hard, and then they don't want to do it anymore. So I've had a couple of relationships do that, and you know, this is kind of how I handled it. Now, those relationships were doomed to begin with, so we can't really blame homesteading on the fact that I'm no longer in those relationships, but this is basically what I've done. Now, the fact is, if I don't think you're going to convince anybody to want to live this lifestyle by trying to talk them into it. You know, if you have a city dwelling, so you guys start out and you live in the city, and this is a dream of yours, and you have this conversation very early on in your relationship, which I think is very, very important. And I think it's as equal as, do I want children? Like, where do you want to live? Do you want to live in the city? Do you want to live in the country? Do you want to homeschool? Do you want public school education? Like, I feel like those are extremely serious conversations that you need to have before you move on with your relationship at all. Same with the financial aspect of it, like what's your goals and desires with your financial aspect. But we are just going to talk about how do I get somebody to want to homestead with me. And I have always looked at the homesteading as, this is my second job or my hobby. And if I look at it that way, then I have zero expectation for the person in my life to come help me work my job for me, because it's my part-time job that, hi Donald, that I do. And my part-time job puts food in my pantry, food in my freezer, food on my plates of my people who live in my house. And there's just zero expectation, if I look at it as a part-time job, for my spouse to help me. Now, I was in a relationship and we had a conversation of, I'll do all of the basic daily work if he would help build things. And we very quickly found that just wasn't gonna work. We just didn't work well together. We didn't actively build things well together. And, you know, it goes back to dealing with that childhood trauma. So, and then he began to resent me, because there's always something to build. There's always something to improve on. There's always something to do. So like all the off time became that. So if I'm looking at the homestead as my job, my part-time job, what can I do to keep this as a part-time job? Number one, you're not going to want to have a milking animal, because that's a full-time job. That is I have to be on the homestead and I have to milk. Or you make sure that you have somebody that will take care of your homestead when you are away, because that's the biggest complaint that people have, is once you get animals or milking animals, that you're married to it, you can't leave your farm. And that's very true. So looking for somebody in your community, maybe another, you know, single homesteader, or another one person in the relationship is homesteading and the other person is not. Because we were so busy. I was so busy with homesteading, because that's my lifestyle. he got mad because we couldn't go away for the weekend or stuff like that. And I just did not at that point have it set up for someone to come watch my farm. So getting that, building those relationships in your homesteading community so that you can have somebody that you can go watch their place for them and do their chores for them when they are busy away, and that they can come watch your place for you when you are away. And so if you have milking animals, it needs to be somebody that understands milking animals and can milk, because that has to happen every 12 hours. So I have that in my friend Carrie. You know, I can go watch her place, and then if I have to take off for the weekend, she'll come over here and watch my place. I don't go anywhere, so I haven't had to call in that favor yet. But, you know, also taking on maybe somebody that wants to learn how to do this. My friend Kelly was, the other day we were chatting, and she was like, I want to learn to milk. I want to learn to do that. And I was like, well, you totally come over here and I'll teach you. And someone like that could come take care of, or stay at your farm, or stay at your place. I actually belonged to this sheep herding club, and it was at this lady's farm, and she had 100 acres, and she had all these sheep. I think she had like 60 to 100 sheep. And we would all come out and do herding clinics and herd on her farm. Well, what she did is when she would go away, one of us would get to come live on the farm and work our dogs as much as we wanted, because we were used to how everything went and how everything, you know, went about. It worked out really well. And since it was a pay by training session on the sheep, you got basically, however, a week's worth of free every day with your dogs on the sheep. And she got her farm watched. So again, setting up something like that would work really well. And then you also have a built-in group of people. Like there was a time when she needed new fencing. We all showed up, and there was like 15 of us that helped her do this fencing, because we had an active interest in the farm because we worked our dogs there on her sheep. So looking for something like that would be extremely beneficial, and maybe setting something like that up in your area. When I have a bigger herd of sheep, that's definitely something that I'm going to do is, you know, I can teach basic sheep herding, and then I have people that are, my animals are used to, and it's used to my farm, and I can train to do things the way that I do them. And, you know, that works really well for emergencies. If you know, have to go to the emergency room, or you have a surgery, or just for some reason you have an emergency and you can't take care of your farm, you have people built in that have been there, that understand how you run things and stuff like that. So look for something like that. But I think this expectation of us that our spouse absolutely has to want to be involved in what we're doing and how the farm is set up, and constant farming and all of those things is just it's just too much of an expectation to cause fights. Like if I was married, or when I was married, or when I had a relationship and someone actively living here, you know, like I have one guy that was so into cars, and that's what he wanted to do, was rebuild cars, and he was getting off of work, and that's what he was wanting to do all the time. And it was like, I have zero interest in that. I like the look of a nice car. I think it's fantastic. I like to ride around in the new car, but I don't want to do mechanic stuff on the car. And that's kind of how I look at the homestead, as far as, you know, they like the food, they like, you know, the fact that they get to live in the country and all those things, but they don't actively want to work on the farm all the time, you know, kind of thing. And so when you're setting up your homestead and you're maybe wanting to just add more animals but do it slowly, or how do I do this as a single person, whatever, you know, talk to your spouse about, you know, do they want to be involved in it at all? Do they want to actually build things or do something like that? Or are they willing to help pay for a handyman to come in and build like the chicken coop, or, you know, the barn, or one of those types of things? Can you pay somebody to come do that? If you can't, are you physically able to do it yourself? I mean, I think that I'm a really good example that you can learn to do this. You know, I've been homesteading on my own for many, many years. And this is the first place that I'm really building from scratch, like actively building. Like I've brought raw land up to, but I, you know, purchased a home that was put on the property. I did build my own barn, but I had help. So, you know, again, building that community of homesteaders, of calling up all your friends and saying, you know, hey, I'm going to build a barn this year. Who who could come and help me, who would like to come help me, who would like to trade, like you helping me with this, I'm helping you with something else on your farm. There's a lot of us that do this alone, and having, 4 or 5 friends come over and bust out a weekend and help get something built is priceless. So looking for people to do that type of thing with, I think would change a whole lot for your aspect, because then you wouldn't really need your spouse to do it. If they want to go to work and do their job and come home and pay bills, and just their off time, they're doing what they want to do, and you're doing what you want to do, which is homestead, that seems like a win-win situation to me. Rabbits, super easy, not a lot of work, not a lot of physical, you have to build a bunch of stuff for them. You can use your rabbits to grow your garden. You can house them in a garage over winter. You don't even have to build a barn or anything like that. Chickens, small chicken coop, super simple to build. Ducks basically need a doghouse, like a big doghouse. And so now you've got meat in your ducks, chickens, and rabbits. You've got eggs in both your ducks and rabbits. And then if you wanted to throw in pigs again, very simple, like electric fence or a small penned-in area, and now you're making your compost. And they do well in the cold. Pigs do very well in the cold. They do a lot. It's a lot harder for pigs in the hot than it is in the cold. So having just hi Donald, you coming in? Having just it's Miss K. Come on, honey. I did not get a scoop. Will you get a scoop of feed? Come on, honey. Can you come up? Good girl. Good girlies. Oh, you're going to get snacks. You're going to get snacks, and you're going to get your feet trimmed. Yeah. Yeah. There's the snackies. There's the snackies. Come on. Up you go. There you go. Good girly. Good girly. That's a big. Can you loosen that? Her feet are awful. Oh, look at all the dust. Okay, got my clippers. So you could easily add pigs to that lineup, and again, you don't have to build a big, huge area. You don't have to, have a bunch of construction work in order to get housing for your pigs. And depending upon where you are, it's the same for goats and sheep. You don't have to have this huge, giant, barn or situation. Now, if you live where I live, where we have these big winters, you have to have something. So you kind of have to think about, she's got hard nails. Think about that in where it is that you live. Like, how much housing are you going to have for those particular animals, and are you going to be able to do that? Now, the other thing that you can do is no animals at all, or so the rabbits and the pigs, they're going to give you compost. So then you can actually have this huge garden with minimal amount of work. You can kind of leave them with a free feeder situation and it not be that big of a deal. But then you have all this compost. So if you do a humongous garden, so for instance, with my situation, I did not get a very good garden in this year. I focused mainly on meats because I'm doing more of a carnivore diet. But I would have loved to have canned some things. And since I would absolutely have traded somebody raising a lamb or, some kind of animal for that instead of doing a garden. So again, in your homesteading community, you can find somebody that wants to do something that you particularly don't want to or can't do, this year. It doesn't mean you're not going to garden every year. Hopefully I'll get a garden in. But this goat has like the hardest feet. Her nails are like ridiculously hard. So if taking care of animals isn't your thing, but you do want to put meat in your freezer, you could trade somebody by, I'm going to grow the garden and you're going to grow all the animals, and we're just going to swap out, kind of thing. But I would say get something that's going to give you compost, because if you're gardening, you have to have compost. You can't garden without it. And so that could be your chickens, your rabbits, your quail. Those are all easy maintenance things that take very, very small amounts of space. But I am going to tell you, if you're homesteading, you're going to learn to build things. And so you'll get better every year, and you could, you know, maybe you have to save 2 years to get something built or pay somebody to get it done. It doesn't mean that it can't get done. It can still get done. I almost want to Dremel for this girl. Her toes are just so awful. We've been naughty. We haven't done these in a while with her. She got put over with the boys and kind of ignored. So I think there's many different ways that you can actually figure it out. I think the thing is, and then I can't imagine somebody living on a farm and not being, you know, like, hey, this benefits me a whole lot. So I'm going to, what can I do to help this be a little bit more successful in, you know, your spouse is going to see that this makes you happy, and then in turn, you know, they get really good food, and the grocery bill is less. There goes a rabbit. Freaked out by a cat. Don't call the cat in here. It just knocked over the camera. Causing chaos. You know, somebody's going to see that they are reaping benefits from the homestead, and you have happier children, and you're happier, and just this better lifestyle in general, and they're going to want to help you. I just can't see someone who doesn't, unless they absolutely just do not have that skill, and their skill may be somewhere else that will benefit the farm. You know, there is something to be said about somebody who will go to work and do the work job, and you don't have to. You know, or you don't have to work as many hours, or they'll work an extra day or work a holiday to get the money to pay somebody else to come out. Oh, good Lord, this girl's feet. This has always been an issue with her, and I had them perfect, and then we put them in with the boys, and she hasn't been back up here in a while. You know, so I think that's why it's super important to get involved in some of the homesteading groups. There's a whole lot of them on Facebook, and because you can meet some people around you and just post and say, hey, I'm doing this, or I need to go on vacation. I see it all the time. Can somebody, I have to leave my farm. Can somebody come watch my farm? And you develop these relationships with people that in turn you can turn around and help them and learn something from them. You know, you may not want to keep a pig, but you find somebody who has pigs, and they don't want 2 pigs. They only want 1 pig, but pigs need to have friends. So you don't want to keep a single pig. You really want them in pairs. And, oh, come on, hoof. Almost need a Dremel for this girly. And so then they could raise 2 pigs, and you pay for the feed, and then bam, now you've got a pig that's doesn't have to be on your property. And maybe you work out the fact that, you know, hey, I'm also gardening. I'd like some compost kind of thing, and work out the compost and work out all of that. And then you get all of those things that you need for your gardening that you're going to do. So you can leave your garden for a bit. I mean, it's going to be a little bit of chaos. You know, things growing out and such, but you can leave it. Unlike a milking animal, you just can't leave a milking animal. You've got to have someone take care of the milking animal. I'm just not, I don't know if my hands are strong enough to get her. Tips of her toes are just so awful. So I think if you really do look at it as this is a part-time job for me, and, you know, by raising a couple of pigs, I'm not having to pay for pork, and I'm not having to buy compost for the next year, which is a large amount of money. I just bought some this year and it was horrible. Well, I bought some the last couple of years and I had some that was contaminated, so nothing wanted to grow in it. And then I also had, hi buddies. Okay. So there are so many different ways that you can set it up so that you can figure out how to...
She's like, minerals first.
So that you can figure out how to actually make homesteading work for you, even if your spouse is not on board. I can't imagine all of the fabulous things that you're going to make with the stuff that you grow and the pork and the animals that you grow out for food and filling your freezer, and your spouse not getting on board, because the financial gain that you get from really well, humane, organically grown things and animals, the health benefits that you guys get from that is just ginormous. And it does save a lot of money because you're not, you're cutting back on your grocery bill, and you're making things, that you either wouldn't be able to buy, or, that kind of thing. If you then decide you've done that and you've now made the decision that, hey, we don't really go on vacation, we don't really go for a long time, I've built up my community locally, and I have friends that are now in the homesteading community. I've gotten to go milk somebody's animal, and I want a milking animal too. So then you'd make the decision that, hey, I want a milking animal, I want to be able to do this also. Then you're in a position to say, well, we don't really go anywhere. We've gotten to where we really just enjoy being home and doing our things at home. My spouse has a hobby of working on mechanic things, which is great because I want to get a tractor and he can get it going and get it fixed. Or grilling or whatever. Like, a lot of men like to grill, they like to smoke things, they like to do that kind of stuff. And so maybe he gets into that. You'll find that when you don't put pressure on somebody, that they're more willing to look at it and go, hey, this is actually really beneficial. And, by building a nice barn, by building a nice chicken coop, by having a good garden, you're improving the property value, you're improving the sellability of it, so that if you guys sell and move, you decide, I don't like this at all and I want out of here, someone else can move right in and get started, and you've developed this land into something that can actually sustain that very easily for somebody else. Or you just say, this year we're not going anywhere. Next year we're planning a vacation. We're saving for all of those things. I'm going to do a bunch of homesteading this year. And then we're going to process all the animals. We're going to close up the garden. And next year I'm not going to do anything. Or one year you do a whole bunch of your meat animals, and all of you fill up your freezers full of meat for 2 years, and then you don't do any animals and you just do gardening, because gardening you can leave. You can be gone for a week, come back, have somebody water it, have it on automatic water timers. There's so many ways to figure it out where you really don't have to have that expectation of the other person in your life that's not sure they really want to do this, but they want to make you happy and you want to do this, so they're willing to give it a try. You can make it happen. That's what I'm saying. There are many, many ways. So if this is something that you're thinking about doing and you just haven't made the leap yet, start with getting on homesteading groups on Facebook. Start asking lots of questions. Who's in this area? Who's in my area? Whose farm can I come out and see? Does anybody need some help? You can start building that community, that homesteading community. One of my goals is to have a huge garden and have a bunch of ladies over, and we do canning. Like, we can like crazy. And I've talked to a couple of friends of mine, and it's like, hey, I am going to grow a ton of tomatoes. I know that I'm not going to be able to can and eat a ton of tomatoes. So if you want to grow something else and specialize in that, I can focus on learning everything that I need to know about tomatoes this year without being overwhelmed with other things, and then we'll swap things. You may have a friend that just wants to grow tons of herbs, and then they have tons of herbs and you can trade product with them. That is what the homesteading community is about. And then you guys can come together and you can and you can split the stuff. And, you don't have to focus on 5 things. You can focus on 1 or 2 things, and then you can help each other out. That's kind of how it works. So be creative about it. don't try to force somebody into doing this that doesn't want to do it, because this is a hard lifestyle. And if you are trying to build, it's even harder. But if your place is already built, my place that was already built, it was very easy for me to add a garden area, to put sheep in one area, to put the goats, to do rotational grazing, and all those things was very, very simple. It was a matter of just opening a gate, letting them in, shutting the gate, filling the water tote, and then checking on them every single day. So a neighbor can do that. A friend can do that. Oh, she has cute little toes. Oh, kicky, 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 kicky. Oh, see, she's got great little feet. Kira and Curtis got frostbite on their feet, and that has really messed up their back feet. That is literally the issue with them. So I think if you look at things a little bit differently like that, and you think, I want my partner to do this, or I definitely need some help, you could totally find someone near you that's doing this same journey that could really help you out and make it a lot easier and not cause havoc on your relationship. It ended up being a really big deal in my relationship, the last one that I was in. And because we had the agreement of, you'll help me build things and then I'll do all the maintenance. And then he decided he didn't want to help me build. And at that point, I should have just said, that's cool. I'll either build it myself, or we'll hire someone to come in and help build, so that you don't have to, because he had other interests that he wanted to do, and he wasn't able to do his interests, hi kitty, with the amount of work that is needed on the homestead. And keeping it definitely pared down, not getting animals. And hey, do as I say, not take the suggestion, but I don't follow it always. You know, you find deals on animals and you decide to get them and then build the property around that particular animal. And then you're working on fences and stuff. Rabbits, very simple, very simple. The cage that I have right now, which is this one under the blue tarp, that was a bought cage. It was $100. It's for cats or rabbits. You could build your garden beds that size, have that sitting on top of it, have a mama, let her have babies, let her grow the babies out, process all the babies, throw the male back in, do it all year long. And you're composting in place for your garden bed. Minimal amount of work. You move it every year. You start a new garden bed. Very simple, very doable. Meat in your freezer, compost in your garden. Very, very easy. So, you know, you could set up, have 6 breeding does. This is what I'm planning on doing. 6 breeding does, 6 pens out there just like this one. And, you know, that's $600. $600 worth of pens. And then I'm building my raised beds in place. And the next season, the amount of compost that you get from mama and babies, you're laying it with the bedding, you're throwing bedding in there, their feed, their whatever, is fantastic. It was some of the best compost that I had directly out of that pen, with the mama raising a couple of litters throughout the winter. And then in the spring, I was able to just use it. You know, the urine will drain out. So it's a cold fertilizer, the manure is, and it will slow release. And then you just put your what you want to plant in if you want to, and then you mulch it really well, and bam, you're golden. Your stuff's going to grow really well. And then chickens and whatever. So I hope this helps. Thank you for hanging out for the stanchion chat. It was a little bit different today, trimming toenails on those girls. But I'm going to go get on the sawmill, and we will see you later. Bye.